Hey, happy Thanksgiving everybody, and thanks for watching my video series. I wanted to take a few minutes today. This is a pretty long video. It's almost 18 minutes long, or maybe a little over 18 minutes once I get it all cut up. And so apologize for that in advance. This one is purely a repair video where I talk about the repairs to my Pebble. So if you're not really interested in checking out how to do repairs on the Pebble, then maybe this is a good one to skip for the next time. This is a longer video. I'm going to do a repair on the back wheel well. I'm going to do a repair on the in the body itself where that battery popped through the bottom. So the first thing I was working on was doing the repair to the area around the back wheel on my Pebble. There's actually not enough clearance on my Pebble. There will be on going forward new Pebbles. But basically what was happening was, as I hit large bumps, or maybe during transit, I'm not sure exactly where it happened, but there were some cracks that were showing up on the edges to the left and right of the wheel well, where the clearance is. There's a metal plate that the wheel attaches to that slides back and forth, and that plate was actually contacting the body when I hit really large bumps. And so I actually went through there and trimmed out that hole on both sides, as well as at the top, because what was happening was when I hit really big bumps, the body would actually come down and hit the top of the fender. So I bought a oscillating trimmer, and right here you're seeing me actually using the trimmer to cut that hole a little wider on both sides. And obviously you want to be really, really careful with this. And I used a metal blade, a blade that's designed to cut metal, thin sheet metal. And so it had really small teeth. And I wasn't even wearing a mask on this side because as I was working on it, it was sending all the shavings away from me. And it worked really, really well. I just bought this little thing at Harbor Freight. It was like $40 or something, and came with a whole bunch of blades as well, or 2 blades, as well as a bunch of sanding stuff so I can do sanding with it. So it was a really nice little tool I didn't have before, and I'm working on it here, trimming out that hole. You can see the blades cutting right through that stuff like no problem. And then the only thing I had to do was go back with an X-Acto knife, or a box knife in this case, and trim away that carpet, because it was, not cutting through the carpet very well because of all the glue and everything. So that is what I would recommend for this type of job. So when I started working on the right side of the wheel well, as you're looking at it from the back, all the shavings were coming right into my face, so I immediately went and put my mask on, because I'm sure that even though it's like low VOC and hemp fiber and all that, I'm sure breathing, it's not the way to go. So I went and put my mask on, and even though you can't really see what I'm doing here, suffice it to say I am trimming that right hand side, and shortly you'll be seeing the blade come towards the top there. Alright, so you're going to see me trim around the top of the wheel well here in a second. And it was actually really easy. Again, the blade cuts right through the material very easily. And with that narrow of a blade with the small teeth, it was really easy for me to make that corner. And I just had to take my time and reinforce my hand and just go slow. You don't want to make any rash cuts or anything. But it did a great job of just trimming that out. And honestly, I thought I was gonna have to go back in and re-sand and do a bunch of junk like that. And it was like a nice smooth cut with no burrs. And all I did was go back after the fact with my box knife and just trim any little pieces that were sticking out. Mostly it was just the carpet, to be honest, that was sticking out. And I had drawn the kind of a line, a gauge to guess on the body with a pencil, so that I could make sure that I didn't overdo it, didn't underdo it, as the case may be. And you can see a little bit of smoke coming off right there, because you know, that blade's getting warm, you know, with all that vibration and cutting. And you know, but again, it worked really well. I had great control. Had a little bit of trouble figuring out how to get that in there with the fender and everything in the way, but it really was not too bad. And then as I was doing the wheel well on the left hand side, again, I realized that my cut was maybe a little bit less than I wanted, so I went back in and trimmed more off. Obviously, don't start trimming off too much, trim less, and then if you need to, you can trim some more. It's not a big deal to go back and, you know, fix your cut if you didn't go too far to begin with. Hopefully you guys won't ever have to do this, but you know, if you need to for some reason, this is, I guess, what you would do. So right here, I'm going to be pulling the piece off, and shortly after this, I'm going to cut the video, but I went out and I grabbed my, you can see the blade there, how it's burned. That it just wiped out the middle of the blade. So that blade got discarded. Obviously, this kind of a job, you probably want to have a couple blades on hand if you're doing anything this lengthy. So I immediately went out and blew out all the you know, refuse and everything with my big blower. And here I am going in to do the light sanding that I wanted to do to prep the surface on the inside where I had trimmed the carpet out, so that I could fix the big hole in the bottom. That was the big primary thing. I obviously wanted to fix the wheel well so that I wouldn't be doing damage to the back, but the big reason why I wanted to do this job was to fix that huge hole that happened when the battery popped through the bottom of my Pebble in transit. And I did some checking for quotes and things about getting somebody local to repair it, and to be honest, there's very few shops in Eugene that will actually do fiberglass work. And the couple that I could find, one was a boat manufacturer and the other was an actual like MAACO, but they were charging a ridiculous amount, like 700 friggin' bucks to do this job. That I don't even know how to do fiberglass work. This is the very first time I've ever done fiberglass work. And I got a little email from Kevin. I watched a couple videos on YouTube, and I mean, it just looked like a piece of cake. And I'm pretty handy, so I went ahead and took on the job. So here I am trimming out the fiberglass. Kevin sent me a bunch of materials to do this job because, again, it was a packing issue. So that way he was, you know, covering me for, he sent me all the stuff I needed. And obviously, if you guys have some sort of damage that happens to your Pebble and you decide to take the job on yourself, I'm sure he'd be happy to send you the materials. Obviously, you'll have to pay for shipping and whatever the materials cost, but it can't be that expensive. And it was super easy to use. There was no solvents. I just discarded the brush, discarded the leftover material. There wasn't even that much. And I still have plenty of fiberglass and plenty of the actual solvents, or not the solvent, but the green material for the actual body, and the kind of semi-transparent hardener stuff. So I trimmed 3 pieces of fiberglass to the size that I needed, and just took a look at the body. And on the outside, what I did was I actually taped it with just blue painter's tape. And I put a whole bunch of it on there so it'd be real well supported. But I figured that that would give me a good start, and that's what Kevin recommended, and it worked great. I mean, when I was done, I didn't even feel like I wanted to put more material on the outside. I was planning on doing that originally, but it turned out so great that, and it's so solid on the inside. I mean, it's probably the strongest part of the body in that area now, because it's got so many layers of material in there, and so much of the green material stuff, the epoxy stuff. And I went well outside, like an inch in every direction from where those cuts were. So there's plenty of support on the body, you know, all throughout. So here I am uncapping the green. So you can kind of see that stuff. It came in a little container that Kevin shipped. And it's kind of weird. It's like peanut butter thick. So you just, you know, spoon it out with this little stick that I used for stirring. And you know, it really was easy to work with, easy to pour into the cup. And next I'm going to grab the material that you use to create the epoxy to harden it. So the hardener stuff is kind of this semi-transparent kind of brown colored liquid stuff. And what you do is you put 4 parts of the green and 1 part of that hardener stuff in. And I was reading the instructions right there as I was doing it on the video. And so I just kind of guessed, and it worked. So I must have done all right. I don't think it's an exact science, but you want to get close, obviously. So I poured in what I felt was the right amount there, and then stirred it up. Kevin said stir it for a few minutes, make sure you get it nice and thick. And then he said there would be 20 minutes of time for me to do work with it, and then it would be kind of to the point where it was starting to firm up and you shouldn't use it anymore. So I had obviously put my gloves on. You don't want to be getting this stuff on your hands. It's super sticky and it's probably not healthy to be on your hands. Even though you can breathe it fine, you see I'm not wearing a respirator or anything, and it doesn't even really smell. There's almost no smell. Granted, I was in my garage, I had the door wide open, but still very little smell. So that was great. It was nice to not have my eyes tearing up and be worried that I needed to wear some sort of big respirator and stuff. So I just used these little discardable bristle brushes, and I'd already cleaned out the inside with rubbing alcohol and waited plenty of time for it to dry. And then basically I just put on a layer of the green stuff down there with the brush, and then I lay a piece of fabric in. Then I wet it down really good with the green stuff again. Then another piece of fabric, and then wet it down, fabric. I mean, it's really, really simple, and anybody can do it. If you know how to paint a wall, you can do this. It's really simple. Granted, hopefully you won't have to do any work on your Pebble when you get it, or for a while. Hopefully it'll be accident-free. But the nice thing is that if something happens to mine later, it gets scratched really bad, or I knock it into a curb, or something like that, at least the nice thing is now I kind of know how to work on it. And I was pretty happy with the results. You'll see those towards the end of the video. And I'm just really thankful that the damage that was to my Pebble was on the bottom and the back, so it's not like it's readily viewable by anybody that happens to notice it. Obviously, I know it's there, but I'm not gonna lay down on the floor and look at it, for fun. So it's not a big deal. But anyway, so after several layers of this stuff and sealing it up, I finished it off on the inside of the Pebble, so there was plenty of material in there. So I put 3 layers of the fabric, the fiberglass, and then basically green in between all those layers. So green at the bottom, glass, green, glass, green, glass, and then more green at the top. So it was real nice and thick. And then I had this other piece that happened on in the transit also, where the battery on the right hand side had slid towards the back, and it had contacted enough that it had created this little bit of a crack on the outside. It hadn't gone all the way through, and so I just was basically sealing it up with some of the green stuff just to make it look as good as it could. So I put that in there, and then here's a shot of the inside once I put all the fiberglass on and everything. So then the next morning I went out, and I just wanted to see what it looked like, so I'm peeling off the blue tape right here, and you know, it looked great. I am really happy with the way it came out. There was this little crack that had happened in the wheel well area, and while I had all the fiberglass and the tape and everything out, I actually put a little layer of the fiberglass plus some of the green stuff, obviously, on the outside of the body right by the wheel well, and you can see that there between those two screws, and it looks a little yucky. Right after I took this photo, I actually used some sandpaper, some 220 grit metal sandpaper, and I just sanded that area lightly, and it smoothed way out. And the crazy thing is, because the body is the same color as the material all the way through, once I sanded it, I brushed off the sandpaper, pieces, and you can barely see it. I mean, it looked great. So here I am installing the rubber that kind of goes around the body there. It's not really a reinforcement thing. I think it's really more for looks, as well as so you don't cut yourself on the fiberglass if you ever reach into the wheel well area. But I just think it looks a little nicer, so I went ahead and put some back on. Kevin had sent it with my kit of the repair stuff so that I could fix that area again. So I went ahead and stuck it back on. It's basically a 3M adhesive on a kind of a U-shaped rubber material. And so there's a 3M adhesive on one side, the other side there's nothing. And the way it was attached before, the adhesive went on the exterior of the body. So the stuff on the inside was just kind of held on by the U shape of the actual rubber material. So here I am, pulling the red adhesive backer off and just sticking it on by hand. I had already cleaned this really well with rubbing alcohol and let it dry for plenty of time. So then it went on no problem, and it was a piece of cake to put back on, and it just really helped finish the thing off. So the last thing today was measuring for the carpet that I was going to replace on the inside to cover up that repair that I did on the inside. And so I went in and stuck some carpet in. Again, Kevin sent it with my kit, so I had everything I needed. And I just kind of stuck it in there and eyeballed it and trimmed it. And then I had to go back 3 or 4 times and reach down there and kind of make sure that I got it about as close as I could. I left a little bit of overhang because my intention is to go get some of that 2-inch wide hook Velcro that they use to kind of hold everything on inside the pebble body, and actually put some on the carpet on the outside edges just to kind of keep it down real strong. Because even though I glued it in with Gorilla Glue, you can see the Gorilla Glue bottle there, I'm sure it'll hold really well in the green area, but I don't think the Gorilla Glue is going to hold down on the edges very well, and I don't want it to peel off as I'm throwing groceries in there and whatever else that I happen to stick in the pebble in the back. And so I went ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and get some of that Velcro, put it in there just to make sure that it holds real well. Just thanks for watching. And I'm really happy with the results that came out, especially for me, somebody that's never done fiberglass work before in my life.